sluggish, heavy, clunky, like you kind of need like an engine flush? Well, recently an age-old practice for detoxing, the coffee enema, has made a big splash in social media when it comes to helping the body detox. There's also been a bit of pushback in the medical community about the dangers of coffee enemas. So, coffee enemas, are they safe? Do they work? Should you be doing it? How do you do it correctly? Well, today I'm going to be covering the 5 things you must know about coffee enemas to decide whether or not you should be doing it too. May here, I'm a functional medicine dietitian. I love helping men and women feel and look their best by optimizing their metabolism, hormones, and health span. This is definitely the channel to be watching if you want the latest science and strategies behind looking and feeling your best after 40. I normally give another free guide, but because today is all about detoxing, I have a very special guide all about toxin-free living. It's a total comprehensive look at how to get toxins out of your life. Definitely make sure you grab that down below. Okay, so coffee enemas, let's get to it. Am I wearing brown because we're talking about coffee enemas today? Maybe, just maybe. Yes, Max Gershon was the doctor in the 1930s who started using coffee enemas for cancer treatments. Now, I have to say, the person who taught me how to use coffee enemas was a Gerson therapy trained doctor, the late Don Stillings. I really respect him a lot. I must disclose that I have been using personally coffee enemas on and off for the last almost 20 years, and I benefited tremendously. I have helped a lot of clients who are coffee enema virgins venture into this realm. I have talked to a lot of practitioners about their use of coffee enemas and the results they've gotten. I have gotten to interview one of the experts in detox, Dr. Wendy Myers, who is a huge proponent of coffee enemas. So I'm definitely biased. I am pro coffee enema, and I still want to share with you all the things about coffee enemas so that you can make your own decision today. Funny story is, back in graduate school, I led a group of women through a liver detox program for a friend's nutrition company, and I designed all the components of the program, and at the end I threw in the coffee enema as an option. And at the end of 6 weeks, the only thing all these women talked about was how amazing coffee enemas were. Go figure. Yes, we're going to get into some of the nitty-gritties that no one else is talking about, and yes, I get complaints that I'm talking too fast. You can definitely rewatch this video, take notes, or slow down the playback speed. I apologize, this is just how my brain works, and I'm giving you a download today. All right, so let's get to it. All right, so the first thing you must know about coffee enemas is you must know the benefits. Coffee enemas are the equivalent of a very gentle liver flush. And we know most Americans, or modern day people in general, have way too much toxins in their body. We are exposed to toxins in our food, water, air, home, industry, farming, you name it. Plus, a lot of us aren't very good at detoxing, whether that's because of genes, whether that's because we're also taking medications and hormones, or we just are a little backed up when it comes to things like bile flow or eliminating our bowels. These things are super critical for us to continue the detoxing process. So how exactly is a coffee enema an engine flush for the liver? Let me go through the science here. The premise is that coffee enemas help to stimulate your body to send more blood to the liver through the portal vein. So this is a basically opening up of blood flow so that more toxins get to the liver. Also, there was rat studies done in 1980s where they saw that a particular component of coffee helped make more glutathione in the body, which helps excrete more bile. Now, this hasn't really been replicated in humans. So again, this is a little bit of theory here in the science, but at the end of the day, anything that helps bile flow, anything that sends more blood flow to the liver, you are essentially getting a better flush. By the way, I can't help but plug here that one of the things that really help liver detoxing besides coffee enemas is glutathione, which I mentioned is in that rat study. There is absolutely no harm in using glutathione while also doing coffee enemas. And I do have my favorite glutathione product. It's topical. It's called Glutarol. I'll link it down below. I interviewed the doctor who created Glutarol, and in that affiliate link, you can watch that interview. So go check that out. Okay, so is there actually a scientific paper that shows that coffee enemas really do flush the liver? There was one study done with 34 human participants. They were split into two groups. One was a control, one was a actual treatment group, and they basically did a flush in their small intestines in order to prep for almost like a colonoscopy of the small intestines. Both groups did the flush, but the treatment group did the coffee enema before doing a flush. And what they found was the ones that did the coffee enema before the flush had better bile flow through the small intestines and therefore had better prep for their colonoscopy type procedure. So I would say that's pretty darn cool that it is a way to flush bile out of the liver in a gentle way. One of the other benefits of coffee enemas that I love is that it stimulates the vagus nerve by activating cholinergic receptors in the gut that also are reflected in the brain. Now we know that the vagus nerve is super critical for the gut-brain connection, and then people who are chronically constipated, some people have very poor vagal tone, and coffee enemas potentially could help by stimulating the bowels to move again. We call that peristalsis, almost like a squeezing of the toothpaste along the way. And so if coffee enemas can help give you that extra brain-gut connection, it can be really supportive for people who have poor vagal tone or struggle with chronic constipation. So the next thing you must know about coffee enemas are the risks. And I want to go over this in a little bit more detail because this is the scary part that a lot of times detours people from doing coffee enemas in the first place. So between 1980 and 2012, there were 9 reported cases that were published about adverse reactions to coffee enemas. So let's break it down. 3 people actually died, 4 people developed colitis, and 5 people reported having burns related to coffee enemas being too hot. So of the people who died, if you actually look into the research paper, 1 died because they were doing coffee enemas all throughout the night, 3 to 4 times per hour for a total of 10 to 12 rounds, and then a coffee enema every hour after that. Another person was a cancer patient who was doing coffee enemas 3 to 4 times a day. And the third person was a person who got a blood infection, potentially from contamination of a coffee enema. Now, I just want to go over why these people died. The first 2 probably died of osmotic imbalances, meaning electrolyte imbalance. They probably got a little dehydrated. They were using the coffee enema way too often, and it was serious enough that it probably caused cardiac arrest. Now, the third patient was probably very immunocompromised. Again, another cancer patient. Normally, most healthy people would not be dying of blood infections from a toxin exposure through the gut, namely because we have something called the hepatic reticuloendothelial system, which helps to screen toxins and helps to prevent toxins from entering the bloodstream. Now, this person who died probably had a very compromised liver plus a very compromised immune system. We probably could mitigate most of the risk by doing coffee enemas the right way, meaning not too frequently, not at the wrong temperatures. The people who developed colitis, we're still not quite sure the mechanism. So I always tell people, if you have IBS, IBD, or you've had a colon resection, you want to talk to your doctor. It's not an absolute no, but you have more risk. Now, when it comes to mitigating risk, I just want to talk about briefly kind of best practices, and I'll get into best practices later as well, but definitely you don't want your coffee enema too hot. It should be the same temperature as your body temperature. So if you were to stick your finger in the coffee, it shouldn't feel hot or cold. The second thing is not too often. I tell people coffee enemas should be done like once a week, at the most 3 times a week for a short period of time, unless you're medically supervised to do it more. And it is important to stay hydrated before, during, and after anything like an enema. Lastly, when it comes to avoiding toxin exposure, staying really hygienic with your coffee enema kit is super important. And again, this is more nitty-gritty, but you always want to rinse out your bucket and the catheter, hot soap and water, disinfect it once in a while with hydrogen peroxide or vinegar. And I never let stagnant water sit around in my enema bucket. So again, best practices, keeping things really clean, is going to help minimize the risk of getting toxin exposure through your coffee enema. Number 3 must know about coffee enemas are potential side effects. Now, if you're sensitive to caffeine, you might want to know that doing a coffee enema the other direction is about 3.5 times less caffeine absorbed into the body than orally drinking the same amount of coffee. This was done in a research paper. I'll link it down below. But you might get a little bit of a pick-me-up that's not the same as drinking coffee, but it helps to perk you up sometimes. And so if you are really sensitive to that, I would say do your coffee enemas in the morning, no later than 1 p.m., just like you would for coffee. Okay, another potential side effect is nausea, either you're detoxing too quickly or you just have a lot of toxins to dump, and so this is a little bit of almost like a Herxheimer reaction. A few things you can do here is you could take 2 tablets of activated charcoal if you do feel nauseous. Also, another thing is to minimize toxin exposure. Check out what in your environment you are being exposed to and mitigate your toxin exposure. And I did make a video on top 2 things that you are exposed to that definitely affect your metabolism when it comes to toxins. I'll link that video down below for you to watch after this. All right, 4th thing you must know about coffee enemas that no one's talking about, and this is the nitty-gritty logistics. I know this isn't necessarily like super fun and exciting, but if you're gonna do coffee enemas, these are questions I always get asked, so I'm gonna address them here. Number 1, the coffee needs to be organic, caffeinated, and unflavored. If you are sensitive to mold or you just want to be super cautious, you can do mold-free coffee as well. There's Danger Coffee, Purity Coffee, a lot of brands. I'll link them down below. Not a fan of instant because instant coffee has the highest amounts of acrylamides, which is a type of toxin. So that's the last thing we want to be sticking up our butt is more toxins. So let's just stick to the plain Jane old-fashioned coffee grounds, okay? Another thing that is important is you want to use filtered water, ideally distilled water. Again, you don't want toxin exposure from water that's just coming from the municipal district that isn't filtered. One of the things that's important to note is the right water to coffee ratio. You could always start with 1 tablespoon per quart of water and work your way up from there in terms of concentration. And you also want to hold the coffee enema for 15 to 20 minutes. You can work up to that. At first, you might only be able to hold it for 5 and then gradually increase. Always remember that if you hold it more than that, it's not better. So I'll share a quick story. I accidentally forgot once to void my coffee enema. I just went about my day and I was like, I forgot something really important. But I must have been super dehydrated because my body just absorbed all that water and absorbed all that coffee and it just never came back out. So did I die? No. I definitely got a little bit more of a caffeine high though. So don't do that. 15 to 20 minutes is the aim. Set a timer so you remember to void. Most of the time you don't forget. The other thing is volume. You want to work up to like 24 ounces total, but you might want to only start with 8 at first and then gradually titrate up, like add another 4 to 6 to 8 ounces every time so that you can work up to 24. Some people say 32 ounces, but I find 24 is a good amount of coffee to be holding. All right, 5th final tip on the things you must know about coffee enemas so you can do them right and benefit. And this is related to best practices. So best practices, number 1 is one way to get the temperature just right. 2 ways is either brew your coffee and then add cold water, filtered, to get it the right temperature. Another way is to refrigerate the coffee, use it the next day and heat it up just so that when you stick your finger into the coffee, you don't feel hot or cold. Those are 2 quick and dirty ways to get it the right temperature every time versus waiting for it to cool for forever, okay? Usually we don't have that kind of patience. The other thing is, a must-have when it comes to coffee enemas is using a catheter, a rubber catheter. It is super flexible and easy to apply and you'll never ever end up puncturing something down there. People are always afraid of that. It's like half the size of a tampon when it comes to like thickness and super easy to clean and replace. So I'll link down my favorite coffee enema catheter buckets down below. I usually buy them from the Gerson Therapy website, honestly. Yes, you can buy steel and glass buckets. I don't really love glass because it can chip and break in this case, especially if you're hanging it up in the shower super high. And then steel, I just don't always find that I like seeing how much coffee is in my bucket. And the other thing is I did have a steel bucket recently rust on me and I was super pissed off about that. So sometimes in this case, if it's the one plastic thing you own and use, I would say in this case, it's convenient and maybe a necessary thing. So anyways, just know that the steel and glass ones are out there. All right, another best practice is they always tell you to lay on your left side while you're waiting for your coffee enema to percolate. And a lot of times I'm just so busy that what I do is I administer the enema in the shower and then I take a hot Epsom salt bath afterwards. And so I'm laying down, listening to an Audible book, getting my Epsom salt bath in, plus holding my coffee enema. And then I void in the toilet afterwards and go on with my day. And it's almost like having a little spa treatment. So a coffee enema can definitely be part of a spa treatment. And if you want to build it into your day like that, then it can be like a once a day kind of spa treat for yourself. I know, who would have thought you would think of coffee in that fashion, but hey, it's pretty amazing. Oh, I almost forgot, I did film a very short 6-minute in-home setup video of how I do my coffee enemas at home, not like me actually doing it, but like the whole setup. So if you want to look at that video, DM me on Instagram. I'll probably put it on Instagram, and I'll be emailing it out to my email list as well, so that you can get more of an insider look at how coffee enemas are executed in my house. Well, there you have it, everything you wanted to know about coffee enemas, to do them right, to benefit from them, to feel safe and supported, and maybe even a few things you didn't want to know, but now you know anyways. Again, I hope this video was super helpful. I want to know about your coffee enema experience if you decide to do it after this video, or if you've been a coffee enema user in the past and you have benefited, please let us all know down below. All right, till next time. We'll see you soon.